While there might be things to worry about, there's still plenty of talent to work through the ebbs and flows of the season for the Cincinnati Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff. My co-host Steve will be along with me shortly, as will our special guest, former Reds relief pitcher Mike Stanton. He is also one half of the Back to the Bullpen show over on the Locked On MLB channel, and we are going to break down a lot of different things. He actually has a really great story about Marty Brennaman from back whenever he was a Reds pitcher. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. In just a few minutes, though, we're really going to break down relief pitching because I'm curious as to how Mike Stanton views Tony Santillan's struggles and how he can get out of that. He gives us his answer in just a few. We will begin, though, by looking at this Reds team and looking at exactly what we should expect from them for the rest of the season. That's all on today's Locked On Reds podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I want to get your perspective on this. I've seen some folks with a national view of the game that have watched this team and have said they're pretenders. They said this in April whenever things were going really good. Well, they're looking really smart right now because, boy, things have been rough here lately. And as we're recording this before the finale of the National Series on Thursday, everything seems to be falling apart right now.
Right.
How do you view the Reds?
Well, a talented young team. I mean, this is, you're not talking about a team that is coming out of nowhere. This is a team that has played well over the last couple seasons. I don't know, where they're going to be when it's all said and done, just simply because that's why we have baseball. That's why we play the game. If we did it all on paper, hey, that would be called fantasy. And that is not what we live in. We live in the real world. And there's always an ebb and flow. I mean, even the best teams have their downtimes. Even the best teams have their opponents that they just don't play well against. Some of the best teams in all of Major League history, I've played on a couple of them, and there were teams we had trouble beating regardless of how good we were and how bad they were. That's just the nature of the sport. Yeah, things aren't going real well right now, and I understand why people are questioning. The talent is still there. There's a couple things that kind of pique my interest. One of them, they have a pretty severe run differential, and it's
Yes.
negative 40 right now. Does that mean anything? Well, not really. It's just one of the things that you can look at to kind of get an idea. The other one is, unfortunately, I am not a fan of the Great American Launching Pad. I think that is a very difficult stadium to pitch in. You better have swing and miss. But it's even got the ground, even the turf, the grass is fast. So it's hard to pitch in, especially when it gets hot and you're playing day games. The ball flies like crazy. I gave up a couple home runs that I had no business giving up. But, hey, you know what? They went out of the ballpark, and they all count the same.
Looking at this team, Jeff and I talked about the starting pitching on yesterday's show, Mike. And when the Reds went into this season, there were 9, maybe 10 guys you could look at from a starting pitcher standpoint. And the Reds were just like, flush with wealth as far as pitching goes. And you can never say you have too much pitching, but the Reds had a lot of pitching heading into the season.
Right.
And basically almost 2 full starting rotations worth of pitchers available. And they've reached a point now where they had to go sign Chris Paddock off of the street and give him a start this weekend because they have
cut by the Marlins.
Cut by the Marlins. They've run out of arms.
Sure.
And you look at these pitchers and the Reds pitching staff right now is in the shambles, really. I mean, both the starting pitchers, the bullpen, everything is in the shambles right now. But I did want to ask you about one guy in particular because he's kind of the lone bright spot in this Reds rotation right now, and that's Chase Burns. And we've heard a lot of guys from a national level talking about Chase Burns and saying things like future ace, his stuff plays like a guy that's going to be the number one in this rotation somewhere down the road. But with every start, I feel like he's closer to that being the here and now than he is a future candidate for that title, especially given the state of the Reds pitching staff. I know you've probably had a chance to see him pitch at least a little bit this season.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on Chase Burns and his stuff and his potential?
The stuff is legit. And here's the thing. That's what people always look at first. And that's everyone in the industry, out of the industry. In this day and age where data is at our fingertips, you can follow every single pitch on Baseball Savant. You can know any kind of movement the pitch has seemingly as the pitch is coming in. The pitch, the stuff is legit. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's only 23 years old. You're not talking about a guy that has a whole lot of major league experience, but what he's doing right now, you can see the confidence in his body mannerisms. You can see the confidence in his face, and that means everything. Okay, this is a very negative-based sport. And when you can stand out there and you feel like you can put the ball where you want to, which that is really the important part of pitching. It is not stuff. Stuff does not get people out. How many times a night do we see home runs on somebody that's supposed to have great stuff, but he throws it down the middle, it ends up out of the ballpark? It's about command. It's about location. It's just like real estate. Location, location, location. There's a couple guys over, the last couple decades that I use. Kyle Hendricks is one of them. The dude's tossing salad. He doesn't have anything that's spectacular other than his location, and he had a great major league career. In this day and age where everybody is throwing seemingly high 90s, it's not, that's not anything that hitters. It's not shocking anymore. It doesn't surprise them. The velocity on pitches now, you go all the way back to when I came into the league in the 80s, even before that, one of the sayings used to be, if a ball is shot out of a howitzer, out of a cannon, the hitters see it enough, the hitters can hit it. They'll figure out how to get the bat on the ball. So it's all about putting the ball where the ball needs to be put. And right now, Chase is just doing a really nice job of pitching with a lot of confidence, getting ahead in the count, doing all that good stuff. Then you put the good stuff on top of it. Now you're talking about a guy that doesn't just go out and pitch well. You're talking about a guy that potentially can dominate.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've noticed between him and Rhett Lauder, the guy who was picked in the first round of the draft the year before Chase Burns. Is a very big difference because Rhett Lauder's not grading very highly on the stuff scale, but at least his profile coming up through the minor leagues and whenever he was drafted is that he had high command. And I got the chance to talk with him.
I work with a couple minor leaguers that are in that 4A region, not quite big leagues, but they're really good AAA pitchers. And I tell them the same thing. Ignore the data, because that's what you go out, you give up a 3-run home run, you walk 2 guys, they walk off, and the first thing the pitching coach tells you is, oh man, your stuff was off the chart today. Yeah, but I didn't get anybody out. That's so what I tell my pitchers, I said, listen, you can take that stuff and use it if you can, but that cannot be your sole focus. Your sole focus has to be creating weak contact, putting the ball where you want to. I mean, I have one guy, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he pitches he pitches just north of you guys for an organization just north of you guys. And I told him, I said, I don't care what the numbers are. Throw strikes. Because if he throws strikes, he's going to be in the big leagues. The problem is, everything anybody ever talks about is spin rate and movement and all this, and all that's great. If you can't control it, you don't get to use it.
Tony Santillan needs to do one thing to break out of this slump. We tell you what that is next. Right now, FanDuel has the Cincinnati Reds as underdogs to begin the Ohio Cup up in Cleveland as they head up to face the Guardians for 3 games this weekend. And Andrew Abbott is on the mound going up against Tanner Bybee for Cleveland. Abbott's been kind of on a roll recently. And I feel like the lineup had a get-right moment. Maybe we can see a little bit more consistency out of them here soon. I kind of like the Reds to win this game. FanDuel has them at plus 108 on the money line. to get the dub. With Andrew Abbott on the mound, I feel good about that. So I think I'll put a couple of bucks over there. You should too over at FanDuel. By the way, your first $5 bet that wins can get you $150 in bonus bets thanks to this introductory offer during the NBA playoffs. That's all over at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help you cancel the ones that you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so that you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, you can set alerts, you can get notified and stay on top of your upcoming bills. It just makes everything more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Appreciate you making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you are an everydayer, if you're not an everydayer, become one by hitting that subscribe button. And if you are an everydayer, you can take it up a notch and go ad-free audio feed with the Locked On Reds Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonreds.supercast.com or just click the link down in the description of today's show to learn more. There's a couple of guys like looking at this Reds bullpen right now. It's been very interesting because in the month of April, they were everything. In the month of May, they've been everything wrong with the team because they went from shutting everybody down to giving everything up. And the biggest guy that I'm looking at right now is Tony Santillan. I love him. He's one of my favorite players on this team. He was one of the most important players on this team last year, and his importance is underscored by his struggles here recently. I'm very curious how you view this, having pitched out of the bullpen as much as you did. Like, what happens with a guy who's going through a slump in the bullpen? Because it feels like a starting pitcher going through a slump has more opportunity to work through it as opposed to somebody coming out of the pen.
Well, I mean, the first thing any reliever has to do is he has to throw strikes. To tell you the truth, it's more important for a reliever to do, especially if you're going to be a leverage reliever. That's the new term for it. You know, back in the day, it used to be a setup man, short reliever, something like that. You have to be able to take the ball and put the ball in the zone. If you're not able to do that, the manager can't trust you. So guess what? You don't get to pitch. And confidence is everything. You know, I've always said that all of us were, you know, anybody can be a starting pitcher. Maybe not a great starting pitcher, but we were all starting pitchers at one point, you know. But everybody can't be a good reliever. And the reason is because you almost have to have an inner cockiness. It doesn't need to be an outward cockiness. It just needs to be an inner cockiness, saying that, you know what, I don't care if I'm, you know, I get the question all the time, how hard did you used to throw? My answer is always, it depends on the day. You know, I used to pitch a lot. And so if I've gone 3 days in a row, I'm probably not going to throw as hard as I did, you know, 3 or 4 days ago. If I have a little bit of rest, maybe I throw a little bit harder. But the point is, my job never changed. I still have to go out there and get, usually what I did, I came in with a lot of inherited runners. And that was one of the stats that I really harped on for myself. You know, there's two stats that I really paid attention to. Number of games I pitched, because if I'm pitching, I must be doing something right. And second was inherited runners, because my job was to get someone out of trouble. That's what my job was. So, you know, ERA, all that kind of stuff, it kind of goes out the window. Strikeouts, you know, doesn't matter. You know, my job was to leave inherited runners on the base. And, you know, Tony, when he was early in the season, when he was dealing, I think you said he started 11 outings in a row that he put up zeros, no runs. Yeah. Now things have kind of gone sideways a little bit. And it's for someone that has the experience, that's been through it before, you can accept it a little bit more. But putting yesterday or putting tonight behind you can be very, very difficult, especially when you have multiple outings in a row that you're giving up runs. The crazy thing is he can make exactly the same pitches to exactly the same hitters and get a completely different result. I mean, that's just the nature of the sport. And, keep throwing strikes. Don't try and do too much. Don't try and change things. Just believe in what you can do. Believe in yourself and go out there and expect yourself to get the hitters out. That's the confidence you have to be a short reliever. If you don't have that, you're not going to be a short reliever very long.
Mike, let's stay with Tony Santillan for just a minute because, you pitched in parts of 19 big league seasons. And I think you can definitely speak to this looking at a couple of your seasons. Tony Santillan's come out 5 games in a row, allowed runs in all 5 games. And in the last 4 games, given up a home run. Yeah. Now, last season, he pitched in 82 ball games for the Reds. He basically pitched every other day. Not quite, but 82 ball games. Mm-hmm. Looking at your stat sheet, the back of your baseball card, you pitched more than 80 games 3 times. Mm-hmm. I wonder about the wear and tear and the cumulative effect year over year. In a season where you pitched in 81, 82, 83 games, your career high, 83 games in a season, was there fallout from that? Did you feel that the following year? Was your arm different as a result of that much use the season before?
That never really even came to mind. What I did last year, it never crossed my mind. I was what are we doing right now? What do I need to do today to get ready to pitch today? I always called myself, I'm a baseball player that just happened to pitch. I wanted to be an everyday player. God blessed me with an exceptional, resilient left arm. And so that's how I approached. I came to the ballpark every day expecting to pitch. And, the thing is as many games as I pitched in, I probably warmed up at least one time more than how many games I pitched in. So I pitched in 1,100 games. I warmed up at least 1,100 times. There were times I would warm up 3 or 4 times just to get in the ball game, and it was a different situation back then. And if you didn't pitch, the pitching coach, the manager, they didn't count it. So it doesn't matter how. I mean, there was one time against St. Louis, I think I warmed up 6 times and didn't pitch. So it was just one of those, that was just the nature of the beast that was Major League Baseball. But, now they count all that. They count how many times you warmed up. They count, how many pitches you throw in the bullpen. That's all part of the data that's put together. There was only 2 times in my career that I can remember. There were probably a lot more that I shouldn't have been out there. And there was only 1 time in my career I can ever say that I asked for an off day. It didn't matter what I did. 2 times. I'm sorry. There was 2 times. One time in Atlanta, I pitched 4 innings in extra innings, and I got the win. The next day, they gave me a day off. They told me I had the day off. And then there was another. Where was the other one? The other one was, this is one I shouldn't have been out there. This was probably in one of my best seasons. This was 2001 when I was with the Yankees, and that was my one All-Star year. I pitched against the Oakland Athletics in Oakland after pitching 4 days in a row, and I think the 4th day was a day game after a night game, and I couldn't scratch my head. I couldn't do this, but I said, "Hey, you know what? I'll take the ball." And I think when I got in the game, I'd thrown about 6 pitches and already given up a run and had the bases loaded. So that was a day I probably shouldn't have been out there. Now, there were more of those, but my approach was I come to the ballpark to play. I'm an everyday player. I just happen to pitch. You throw 80 plus games. Listen, if somebody's giving you the ball that much, you are doing something right. But as far as the residual effect, that never crossed my mind. What I did last week, maybe. But what I did last year never even entered my consciousness.
What is the effect on a bullpen that doesn't have a closer, or it doesn't have the ace of the bullpen? Because without Emilio Pagán right now, the Reds are kind of searching for that. Sure. And it makes me wonder a little bit, like, do you ever kind of get over that part, or is everybody just kind of All right, when's Emilio coming back?
Yeah, it's really a mindset type thing. Early in my career with Atlanta, I was part of the young guys that came up to start that 14-year run of divisional titles. I played there. I got drafted in '87. I played there through trade deadline '95, and that was one of the things they always talked about. We went to the World Series and we lost a couple times. And why did we do that? Well, we didn't have a closer. Well, we had probably 3 or 4 guys in the pen that could close. They just didn't want to give the ball to one guy. And there was one year that I was a closer. I had, I think, 27 saves. It really wasn't until Mark Wohlers, and even there was 3 years at the beginning of his career that he pitched. Two of those years, I think he pitched in the World Series, but started the next year in the minor leagues. It wasn't until he got established a little bit more that he actually became the Braves closer. But what it really is, it's a mindset of everyone in the pen. And, here's how I approached it. Here's how I talked to young guys about it. My job says pitcher. Okay. My job title says relief pitcher, which means I can come in at any time. I have to be prepared for that. If I am not prepared, that is my fault. Guys that usually complain about roles usually are not pitching very well. They're looking for an excuse. My job is to go out there and get dudes out. That's it. Whether it's in the 5th inning or it's in the 9th inning. So it's really a mindset thing that that pitchers have to, accept that I'm going to I may come into the 6th inning today and the 9th inning tomorrow. Doesn't matter. The job is the same.
Sounds like you never hear Mike Stanton pulling a Raisel Iglesias saying the team's using him horribly wrong. You won't ever hear that out of Mike Stanton.
No. Well, listen, one of the bullpens, the best bullpens maybe ever, were that late 90s. Now, the late 90s Yankees. And the reason we were so good, we had Mariano. It doesn't matter how bad I pitched. I had a safety net, and his name was Mo. And there was nothing to watch him on a daily basis was absolutely amazing. But hey, like I said, I was an everyday player that just happened to pitch.
I got a question about that I want to save for just a minute. We all know that Marty Brennaman is one of a kind. But Mike Stanton has a great story coming up next that will just continue to confirm that. We've all been there, right? In the workplace when there's just so much chaos, you've got your inbox overflowing, deadlines are stacking up on you. There's so much to do. And then, well, yeah, by the way, there's that vacant position that you still haven't filled. That's when you need sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, whether you're talking about skills, experience, location, whatever you're looking for. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. As my other job, I manage the Locked On MLB channel, and there's times when we have to find a new host for a show. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs makes that so easy because we can set the parameters that we absolutely need to get the right host in the right position, and Sponsored Jobs makes that so easy. If you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of today's show will get $75 in sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status that it deserves over at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Reds. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When I first got the chance to speak with you on the phone, you had told me a story about Marty Brennaman. And I wanted to kind of get that out to the Locked On Reds everydayers because I think they would appreciate that, because there was a period of time where you were here and David Weathers was here, pitching out of the Reds bullpen, and you had to ask Marty a question. And I kind of want to get that story from you.
So Marty was awesome. I mean, Hall of Famer, it really could say anything he want, and most of the time he did say anything he want. And he was a hardcore Reds fan. But he had, and listen, in 2007, we did not play well. We didn't meet anywhere close to the expectations we should have. And Marty had no qualms in airing out that dirty laundry during the game. And, we would hear about it. And David and I, I was obviously a big time veteran. He was a veteran at the time. And, we wanted to talk to Marty about it. And the great thing about Marty was, it doesn't matter what he said. If you wanted to say something, if you wanted to air him out, if you wanted to have a discussion, Marty would come downstairs and he would have it. And he would give as much as he would take, for sure. But you always have to respect that. When you got a guy in the media that is being hard on your team, even if he's supposed to be representing your team, which that's what Marty was doing, to come down and face you, hey, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And we respected, and I loved Marty Brennaman as a person. I loved him as a broadcaster. And I didn't have as many issues with what he said, because my view was always, listen, no one's going to be harder on me than me. He could say, because if he's saying I stink tonight, guess what? I said a lot harsher words than I stunk tonight. But we were just trying to just see where he was. But that's who Marty was. Marty was going to tell you flat out, this is how I feel. You like it or not, doesn't matter. I'm Marty Brennaman.
Mike, you were in Cincinnati in 2007. As Jeff mentioned, David Weathers was on that team. There are a lot of characters on that team, whether we're talking position players or pitchers. Take us into that clubhouse. And is there a story? Is there a character? Is there something you can share about that team? Adam Dunn's on that team. Brendan Phillips, Griffey Jr., Joey Votto made an appearance on that team. Like, the list.
You didn't say the most controversial player on that roster.
Josh Hamilton. Go for it. Josh Hamilton. That's right.
Josh Hamilton made the team out of spring training. He came to spring training as a kind of a personal favor to the Naring family, who I think it's Jerry Naring was the manager. And, he hadn't played in 4 years. If people don't know the story, I'm not going to go all the way through it, but, he had some drug issues and didn't play for 4 years. Lost a whole bunch of weight, almost died. I mean, it was really, really bad. But this was one of the best athletes, arguably, that's ever walked on the field. I mean, he was that good, and he made the big league roster by just sheer will. I mean, he played extremely well, and you watch the quality of at bats he would have in spring training. You go like, wait, he hasn't seen live pitching in 4 years. Are you kidding? It's not that easy, but it was that easy for Josh. And he ended up having a pretty good major league season. But there was some turmoil that went along with that. Ken Griffey Jr. was, kind of on his last leg. He was one of his last seasons. The body was letting him down. Adam Dunn, same thing, big swing, but, Adam doesn't live very far from where I am right now. But it was just
one of my all-time favorite Reds. I love
it just didn't sit real well that a guy that was basically just an invite just to be nice, he ends up making the team, and guys didn't really take it very well. Even though he played his way. That's my view was always, listen, he's here because he has talent. Is he a guy that can help us win baseball games? Sure. But I was in a different place in my career also than some of these other guys. So, it was and when you're not meeting expectations, the clubhouse always has, I don't want to say rifts, but it's just not pleasant. You're here to win baseball games. You're not here just to earn a paycheck. Now, are there guys that do that? Sure. But they don't usually last very long because there are so many negatives that go along with this sport.
Adam Dunn had a 940 OPS that year. Josh Hamilton, 922. He was right there with him. That's fun to remember, that sort of thing, because you forget about Josh Hamilton because they ended up trading him for Edinson Volquez that next offseason, and then he goes crazy off and really good for the Texas Rangers for a few years there. That was it's always an interesting one.
I had the historic home run derby in the All-Star game, had that historic. And you know what?
Crazy.
That killed his second half too. We've seen that several times. And that's why they changed the format, because guys were just taking way too many big swings.
It's like hundreds of swings. It was crazy. One thing that I wanted to ask you before we end, because I got the chance, we've had Lucas Sims, former Reds relief pitcher, on a couple of different times, and I asked him this question, and I thought it was a great answer. I'm curious as to how you see this. Through the different teams that you played for, did you ever have assigned seats in the bullpen?
We did not, but the bullpens are very dynamic places, and they can be very harsh. They can be brutal. They can also be the best seat in the freaking house. It just all depends on who is there. It depends on, how the dynamics, how, who's running the thing. I was known as a trickster. I was known as someone that liked to have fun, especially early in games. But I was also someone that guys didn't usually do anything to, because I had a standing rule. My standing rule: if you get me on anything, you get me once, I'm getting you 3 times. So guys figured out that, okay, we could play around, but there was a line that you didn't want to cross, because I'm coming at you hard. No, we never really had. I mean, early in my career, I pitched with a couple veterans. It really wasn't assigned seating, but it was more, who gets to play, who plays catch with the outfielder. We ran out of sunflower seeds. Rook, go down and get some sunflower seeds out of the dugout or something like that. There was some of that, but no, we never really had assigned seats. And the way the bullpens are now, I mean, they have so many seats. Now, I could tell you, I played in Candlestick Park with the Giants, and we called it the chicken coop, that could sit about 5 guys. Now, you remember, you wanted to be inside in the summer in San Francisco because it was freaking cold. Right. So if you were a young guy in those bullpens, you're sitting outside, you're freezing your butt off, because then the veteran guys would be in the chicken coop. Now, it was a miserable place to be, but at least you were out of the wind.
Mike, it's been great having you on. And before we let you get out of here, we do want to let our Locked On Reds listeners know about what you've got going. You've joined the Locked On family. You've got your own show going on over there in the Locked On MLB feed. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you've got going on over there?
So we're in our 3rd season with Back to the Bullpen. That's the name of our podcast. The first couple, we were basically covering just the Astros, but recently we did sign on with the Locked On Network, and we changed our format. Now we are, we don't highlight games or anything like that. We may highlight players, but we're kind of news and notes from around the league. And, we're kind of covering all 30 fan bases. As we get later in the summer, I'm sure we're going to kind of focus more on the good teams. But, when something with a subpar team comes up and we think it's interesting, we're going to talk about it. We're both on X. You can find it. You can see it right there below my name. That's where you can find me on X. And if there's something somebody wants to talk about, you can absolutely get in touch with me, and maybe we'll use it on the show. But yeah, it's a daily podcast, just like this is. We are airing, I think, Jeff, we are airing at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern.
2 Eastern time each and every day.
Monday through Friday. And you can find us on the Locked On MLB channel. Our podcast is inside that channel. Go to podcast and you can find us. So check us out. We have a lot of fun. We may talk about anything. We may talk about news and notes of today. We may tell stories. I'm going to have former teammates, come in and do interviews with, some of the bigger names in the sport of yesteryear. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun this summer covering baseball, and we'd love to have people check us out.
Appreciate Mike taking time to talk some baseball with us. We'll definitely have him back on here soon. That was a lot of fun. But as we move through the season, we're going to have ourselves a nice reliever back in the bullpen to give us the inside scoop. Former Reds reliever Mike Stanton. Plus, you can check him out every single day over on the Back to the Bullpen show on the Locked On MLB channel. Make sure you go check that out and more right after this here episode. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can hang on and go over to Locked On's first ever 24/7 streaming channel with all the biggest stories in sports being covered by the local hosts of Locked On. But that'll do it here for us this week. Coming up next week, we will be looking into the chaos that the Cincinnati Reds continue to provide, hopefully to be the good kind. I also really want to have a chat about Spencer Steer because, man, he's going good right now. And I know everybody's gushing about Ellie De La Cruz as much as I am too. We need to gush a little bit about Spencer Steer. We will next week. Make sure you join us. Make sure you subscribe because we will be Locked On Reds every single day.